Garcia, and my why question is, why is the Roman Catholic Church against homosexuality? Okay, so this video, it's from Hank Green. He's known for doing, a bunch of crash courses. Started Circle 6.
Good morning, John. Today, we plumb the depths of the marvelously complex human. But first, allow me to acknowledge that I am not a sociop. We're going to start simple. What's going on down here, in between the legs, that is your sex, your biological sex. And it tends to be binary, though there are all sorts of conditions that result in intersex individuals. And as interesting and complicated as this is, the rest of it is much more complicated. So I'm just going to move on from here, because we all kind of get what sex is. Now we move on up to the top, to the brain, which is the thing that decides what gender you identify with, whether you feel like a man or a woman, or neither, or both. Because the fascinating thing is, as much as we try to label things, there is no way to label every point on an infinite continuum, and that's what we're dealing with here. So, to actually visualize how this works, I've created a graph for you. On the x-axis, we have gender, male to female, and on the y-axis, we have the intensity of the identification with that gender. I would be about here, because I identify as a man, though I recognize that there are some womany parts of me. But let's also put a hypothetical biological female on the graph that identifies very strongly as a man. Now that can be really uncomfortable, especially when there's a bunch of people in the world who insist on calling him a woman just because of the body that he happens to be very uncomfortable with. Which is why sex does not determine the pronoun you should use. Gender does. Now, moving on to your heart. Your metaphorical heart, of course. This is who you're attracted to. Men, women, all genders. Again, it's a spectrum, and that spectrum includes intensity, because there are people who don't feel strong sexual attraction at all.
Okay, so he talks he touched on gender and sex, but the main point was sexual orientation. In America, 1 in 10 people consider themselves to be LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. So, how many of you guys know someone who is in the LGBT community? Someone who is not me. Okay. So my story. This is my family: mom, dad, siblings. So, my parents are really Catholic, especially my mom. She's very, faithful, and she has a lot of faith, and they raised me to believe in God and have a lot of faith, and always I went to Catholic school, go to church every Sunday. So when I came out to them my freshman year as lesbian, they were really upset about it. They said a lot of stuff like it's not natural, it's you shouldn't be that way, God didn't want you to be that way. Especially in our family, we'd already had an uncle who came out to my family as gay and who tried to commit suicide. I didn't, but so they were really upset, and it got to the point where they considered transferring schools to an all-girls Catholic school, even though it's ironic because they told them I was lesbian. They believed they thought it was because I came to Mission and that it was a public school rather than a Catholic school, that Mission influenced me to believe that I was gay and that I wanted to be with women. I didn't transfer schools, but I made a deal that in order to stay, I would go to therapy with my mom, and it helped a lot. Me and my mom have a really good relationship. My dad, we didn't talk for a couple months after I came to him. My parents are divorced, so it's a rocky relationship anyways, but my dad still does not fully accept my sexuality. Okay, so in an article from the Human Rights Campaign, it talks a lot about the Roman Catholic Church. There's 1.2 billion members who associate themselves with Catholicism, and they explained that their belief on homosexuality was that it's immoral and it's contrary to natural law. It's not something that should happen. However, the problem isn't their belief is that the problem isn't the fact that you are gay, lesbian, or any other sexual orientation other than heterosexual. They just consider that to be, objectively disordered, something you were born with, but you can't change it. However, the sin, or what they consider the abomination, is the fact that you act on your homosexual tendencies, whether it's you're gay and you have a boyfriend, so you do things with the other male. At the end of the article, which really caught my attention, was that statistically it shows that people who are between the ages of 18 and 29, they are much less discriminatory against the homosexual community rather than people who are older than the age of 65, which I'll talk about more in my solution. In another article I read, which was Churches Contribute to Gay Suicide, in October of 2010, it was like a time where gay suicides was really prominent, and an organization, the Public Religion Research Institute, decided to send out a survey to 1,017 Americans to ask whether they believed that the place of worship or churches had any impact on the amount of gay suicides happening at that time. So of the 1,017 Americans, 1/3 believed that it had a really huge impact on people, and the reason they were committing suicide because of what the church said about them. Second third believed that it had small amount of impact, whereas the last 1/3 believed that there was no impact whatsoever on what the church said about gay people. So I interviewed a teacher who I used to have at Metro Achievement Center. Her name was Erin Aldridge. She teaches character education to a group of girls. And so I asked her a lot of questions, but my main question I just wanted to ask was what was her opinion on homosexuality and what she believed. And she went on to tell me that growing up, she was raised by parents who were extremely Catholic. You know, they were traditional, very orthodox, and they always taught her that having gay friends or being gay or homosexual was immoral and it wasn't right, and you shouldn't be with those type of people. And then she went on to say that, you know, she believed that for most of her life that it wasn't right, that you shouldn't be gay or homosexual. But when she got into college, she realized, you know, like it's not right that everybody should have an equal chance, everyone's the same. But she does believe that the reason for marriage and the reason that God created people was to procreate, and gay marriage stifles that, where if you're gay, you're not procreating, you're not having children, creating more people. So in my solution, like I said in the first slide, people in our generation, or you know, younger generations, are much less discriminatory against homosexual people, and I think that what we need to do in order to, create more awareness is to, inform people our age, or upcoming generations, like no matter where we come from, or what God we believe in, or what we believe, like we're all the same. Doesn't matter like who we are, who we love, what we do. We just need to spread awareness that and teach people that we should all be the same no matter where we come from.